Here's the truth that hit like a punch. My daughter canceled our Hawaii trip because of money problems, then showed up on Facebook, drink in hand, grinning on the same beach, the same week, with her in-laws. Not a misunderstanding. Not a scheduling mix-up. A clean, practiced lie. So here's the question I couldn't shake, and I want you to sit with it too. When your own child lies to erase you, what do? Beg to be let back in? Or take your name off the door and walk out with your dignity? The call lasted less than 2 minutes. Dad, we can't do Hawaii. Stuart's company might downsize. Finances are tight. She used her gentle client voice, the one that sounds compassionate because it has to. I said what fathers say. I understand. I meant it. I meant it until the evidence said I shouldn't. That afternoon, I boxed up the shirts I'd bought for the trip. Small thing, I know. But when you've been a dad long enough, you learn to make peace with small things, shirts, guides, lists, because they're the proof you were trying. I drove to the store, asked for a refund, signed the receipt with a steady hand, and told myself this wasn't personal. Companies downsize. Plans change. We adapt. For a few days, I did what retired men do when the future goes quiet. Fixed a cabinet hinge, read the local paper, walked the loop around the neighborhood. By day 3, the silence felt curated. No callback, no update on any downsizing, just short texts that did the job of human contact without the warmth. And that's when a thought I didn't want took hold. She sounded like a professional delivering bad news, not a daughter asking for grace. I hadn't checked Facebook in months. I barely remembered the password. The screen loaded, and there they were, my daughter, her husband, and the in-laws. Sand, ocean, sunset. 4 faces, 1 story. Best family vacation. Family, not me. Them. New photos with each swipe. A luau. A boat. A tour company logo I recognized from the confirmation email I'd canceled. Same dates. Same island. Not a financial crisis. A choice. There are 2 kinds of hurt. The loud kind that breaks things, and the quiet kind that leaves everything exactly where it is while the floor drops out from under you. I felt the quiet kind. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even shock. It was recognition. She hadn't told me a hard truth. She had rehearsed a soft lie. My old work habits came back on instinct. 30 years in real estate trains you to archive before you argue. I took screenshots, dates, captions, comments. I made a folder, Celeste, March 2025, because naming things makes them real. When I was done, I closed the laptop and sat still in the fading light. And I did something I hadn't done since my wife died. I talked out loud to a room with no one in it. What do I know? I asked the walls. What do I need to know? I wrote the answers in my grocery notebook because I wanted the truth where I'd trip over it. What I know? She lied. She excluded me. She is comfortable excluding me. What I need to know? Why now? What's next? Will there be a cost attached to her apology? I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't leave a comment under the photos. I let the silence work for me for once. Not as a punishment, as a lens. People reveal themselves when you stop filling the gaps for them. A week later, she came by, just to check on me. She held 2 coffees like peace offerings and moved through the house as if crisis might be hiding behind a chair. Her smile was careful. Her sentences were careful. Everything about her was careful except the one thing that mattered. The truth. How's work? I asked, watching her face more than listening to her answer. Oh, the usual. Deadlines. Clients. You know. Smooth. Trained. The whole performance of normal. I waited a beat, then asked about the thing she'd used to tear out our plans by the roots. And Stuart's job? The downsizing? She blinked half a second, not long, but enough. False alarm, she said. All fine now. I let that sit. The room felt smaller. It's a strange moment when you realize the person you raised has learned how to shape you with information. I didn't argue. I didn't show her the photos. I poured her coffee, said we'd do lunch sometime, and walked her to the door like a polite stranger. When the door closed, I went to my office and opened the part of my life that isn't sentimental to spreadsheets. I totaled 8 years of emergencies, last-minute gaps, just until Friday. Wedding costs, a car that died and needed a replacement, the couch they could finally afford if I helped, training courses, co-pays, HVAC repair. One line at a time, the ledger told me a story I should have heard sooner. The number at the bottom wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't a lifetime's fortune. It was worse. It was almost $80,000 paid out in small surrenders. The price of staying available. Numbers don't insult you. They just testify. And that's when my questions changed. Not, why would she do this? But, what will I do about it? I slept lightly that night. Not because of rage, because of clarity. If I confronted her, it would turn into a debate about tone, timing, intent versus impact. The modern vocabulary of not taking responsibility. I wanted something she couldn't manage with a spin and a hug. The next morning I started making calls. Not to her, to an attorney. I wanted to understand a word I'd never had a reason to say out loud. Irrevocable. What does it look like to make a decision that can't be undone when the crying starts? What happens when you stop negotiating the price of your own self-respect? I didn't tell anyone. Not my golf buddy. Not my neighbor. I didn't want input. This wasn't a committee decision. It was a father deciding whether legacy is a blood right or a moral one. Whether inheritance is gratitude or gravity. While I waited for the consultation, I kept my routine. Coffee at 7. Stretch the back that complains about the yard. Read 2 chapters of a paperback picked up at the library donation shelf. And then, because I'm still me, I checked the folder again. The photos didn't change. The faces stayed happy. The caption stayed giddy. The truth stayed steady. If anything new had appeared, a private message, an apology without a request, I might have heard it. Nothing came. Days like that don't blow up. They settle. And when they settle enough, you see the line you're going to cross. I wasn't going to beg for space on someone else's family vacation. I wasn't going to audition for worthiness. I wasn't going to defend my sanity to people who could lie straight to my face and still sleep. Here's where most stories ask you to forgive and move on. That's not this story. Because forgiveness without a change in boundaries is permission. And I was done granting permissions I'd pay for later. By the end of that week, I had an appointment on the 14th floor with a man whose job is to put fences around what you've built. He was polite, practical, and he didn't flinch when I told him what I intended to do. He didn't call it retaliation. He called it alignment, moving resources toward outcomes you believe in, with structures that hold under pressure. Pressure was coming. I knew that. I wasn't naive. You don't pull the plug on a long habit and expect a thank you note. There would be charm, there would be panic, there would be anger. And if that didn't work, there would be lawyers. But before any of that, there was this. A father in a quiet house, choosing a different kind of love. Not the kind that pays fast to stop the crying. The kind that says no and means it. The kind that keeps faith with the part of you that remembers who you were before you started apologizing for it. So that's where we begin. With a simple lie that exposed a much bigger math. With screenshots in a folder and numbers on a page. With a question none of us really wants to answer. When family stops acting like family, what does loyalty owe, blood or the truth? I made my decision. And if you think that envelope I prepared had a check inside, you don't know how this story ends. You would be amazed how easily a lie can be built out of good manners. A smile, a polite tone, a coffee cup between you and the truth, sometimes that is all it takes. After the Hawaii revelation, I did not storm out or demand explanations. I learned long ago that silence brings out more truth than confrontation. You just have to be willing to let people believe you are slow while you quietly watch them hang themselves with their own words. Celeste called again 5 days later. Dad, sorry I have been quiet. Things are crazy at work. Her voice had that same brightness she used on clients when she was about to sell them something they did not need. I said, "It is all right, honey. Take your time." And I meant it. Take all the time you need to build the next story. She did not know I had already done my homework. I had scrolled through her entire Facebook page, all the way back to the posts before the supposed financial trouble. Can't wait for upcoming adventures. Family first. Even a comment from her mother-in-law. So excited for our Hawaii trip. Posted days before Celeste ever invited me. That is the kind of thing most people overlook. But when you spend decades reading contracts, you learn that the truth hides in the dates, not the sentences. By the time she came to visit again, I was ready. The same house, the same living room, the same faint smell of coffee and lemon polish, but something had changed. Me. I was not the soft father who would say, "It is okay," and reach for his wallet like an emotional, automatic teller machine. I had been reading, thinking, and adding things up. That day she arrived with her husband, Stuart. He had that salesman's grin that never reached his eyes. "Gus, good to see you, man. Got a sec to run something by you?" I invited them in. Let them believe they were leading the conversation. They sat on my couch, the same one where Celeste used to watch Disney movies as a little girl, and began their pitch. A coffee franchise, she said. Really solid business model. Great returns. She had done this before, just not with business words. It used to be a couch, a car, a class. Now it was an investment. The vocabulary had changed, but the pattern had not. How much are we talking? I asked. Her eyes flicked to Stewart, who picked up his cue. $100,000. For a 15% stake. You would be helping us secure our future, Dad. $100,000. The number itself did not shock me. It was the pattern that did. Sitting there, I realized she had not been calling me for family. She had been calling me for funding. I leaned back, pretending to think it over. Send me the details, I said. Let me look through it. She smiled, relief softening her shoulders. Of course, Dad. No rush. But I knew there would be rush. There is always a fake deadline when a lie tries to sound legitimate. That night, the email came in. Subject line: Coffee shop investment opportunity. 23 pages of badly formatted optimism. Copy-pasted market data. No management experience. Projections that would make a casino owner blush. And buried on page 19, the real ask: $100,000 for a 15% stake. Not a cent more, not a cent less. Too neat, too rehearsed. I read every page twice. I made notes like I was reviewing a property appraisal. No background in food service. Unrealistic returns. Unknown management. I was not angry. I was fascinated. My daughter was trying to sell me a dream built on air, and she thought she could, because she was selling it as family trust. But what she did not know was that I had already given my trust to someone else, a lawyer named Richard Chen. 2 days earlier, I had walked into Mr. Chen's office with a folder labeled Estate Planning. He had asked me a simple question: "What are your goals, Mr. Griffin?" And I had told him the truth, plain as day, to make sure my money outlives the lies. He leaned forward. "You are talking about an irrevocable trust." "Yes," I said. "One that no one can touch, not even family." We went through the details: property, accounts, investments. By the end of that meeting, my legacy had new coordinates: the Arizona Veterans Alliance, a nonprofit that helps homeless veterans find housing. Men and women who gave something real, not just said they did. The trust would take effect in 3 weeks. My house, my savings, my retirement, all placed beyond anyone's reach. My lawyer called it asset protection. I called it clarity. When Celeste's email about the coffee shop arrived, I did not delete it. I printed it 3 copies, one for my lawyer, one for my records, and one for the moment I knew was coming. I wrote the date neatly at the top corner of the page: April 20th, 2025. The trust would finalize April 25th. She had no idea I was counting down. When she called to follow up, her tone was bright, eager, professional. "So, Dad, did you have a chance to review the documents?" "I did," I said. "Give me 1 week. I will decide by Friday." "Perfect," she said. "But just a heads up, they need investors confirmed by the end of the month." I smiled into the receiver. "Then your timing is perfect, honey." She did not understand what I meant. She did not know she was walking straight toward the wall I had already built. That week, I finalized everything with Mr. Chen. Notarized, signed, transferred. The word irrevocable stamped on every page like a verdict. I left his office lighter than I had felt in years. I was no longer a father financing someone's comfort. I was a man reclaiming control of his life. When I got home, I poured a drink scotch, 1 cube of ice, and watched the Arizona sunset bleed gold over the desert. My phone buzzed. "Celeste again. Can Stewart and I come by Friday? Talk through everything in person?" "Of course," I texted back. "Come by at 2 o'clock. Just us." She thought I was saying yes. And maybe I was just not in the way she imagined. Because what I had waiting on my desk was not a check. It was a manila envelope, sealed and dated April 25th. Inside it was the truth. The kind you cannot refund, return, or undo. And the best part? I was no longer angry. I was calm, deliberate, resolved, the kind of peace that feels like justice in slow motion. Friday was coming. And with it, the moment I would find out who my daughter truly was and whether she was ready to face the cost of her own story. Friday arrived like any other day in Scottsdale: clear skies, quiet streets, sunlight slicing across the blinds. But inside my house, everything had weight. The air, the clock ticks. even the manila envelope on the coffee table. 2 o'clock sharp. Her car appeared at the end of the driveway. I saw the passenger door open. She had brought him. Of course she had. Stuart walked beside her, portfolio under his arm, the look of a man ready to negotiate. They were dressed like success, polished, confident, rehearsed. I opened the door before they could ring the bell. "Dad, you look great," Celeste said, smiling too wide. "Thanks for coming," I replied. My voice was calm, not warm. They followed me to the living room. I had moved the furniture earlier, 2 chairs facing each other across the coffee table. No couch, no comfort, just conversation. Stuart spread his papers immediately, his voice practiced. "We're so excited to share this opportunity. Our friends secured a location near the Arizona State University campus. Great foot traffic, perfect for specialty coffee. They already have 3 other investors. They just need one final partner to close the deal." I nodded slowly. "And the investment amount?" $100,000, he said without hesitation. "For 15% equity, you'd be part of something real, Dad." Celeste leaned forward, her tone softer. "It's not just about business, Dad. Stuart and I are thinking about starting a family. This could give us stability. Our kids could grow up knowing their grandfather helped build it." There it was, the emotional pitch. Not logic, not numbers, bloodline and legacy. They had learned how to weaponize family. I set my coffee down and looked directly at Stuart. "Who will manage day-to-day operations?" He blinked. "The franchise provides full training and support." "That's not what I asked. Who specifically will be running the place?" He hesitated. "Our friends. They're motivated, hardworking, with restaurant experience?" Another pause. "Not exactly, but the system." I raised my hand, stopping him. "Enough." The silence that followed was sharp. Celeste tried to fill it. "Dad, please. You've always said risks are part of growth. You built your career on that." "I built it on facts," I said quietly. "Not fantasies." I let the words hang there, just long enough for her to realize something was off. Then I softened my tone. "I'll give you an answer next week. 7 days." She frowned. "We really need to finalize soon." "The lease." 1 week. I repeated. My voice was firm. "If the deal's solid, it can wait that long." Stuart's jaw tightened. "Understood." He gathered his papers too quickly, pages slipping out of order. Celeste forced a smile. "We appreciate you, Dad. Truly. We believe in this dream." I walked them to the door. She hugged me, all perfume and nerves. "Thank you for considering it." "I said I'd think about it," I replied. "Not that I'd decide." As their car pulled out of the driveway, I watched through the window. They didn't leave immediately. I saw their silhouettes arguing, Stuart's hands cutting through the air, Celeste's head shaking fast. They were already rewriting the conversation. Inside, the house was silent again. I walked to my office, opened the drawer, and pulled out the envelope. It was dated April 25th, 2025. Inside were copies of the signed, notarized documents, my house, my savings, and my retirement accounts, all transferred to the Arizona Veterans Alliance. It was official, irrevocable, permanent. I sat down, letting the quiet hum of the air conditioner fill the room. The truth was simple. By the time they had asked for money, I no longer had any to give. Not to them, not anymore. I thought about what my lawyer, Richard Chen, had said earlier that week. "Once you sign, you can't change it, Mr. Griffin. You'll be surrendering control." "I've been surrendering control for 8 years, I told him. "This is me taking it back." The next few days passed slowly. Celeste texted twice, short, polite, cautious. "Just checking in. Hope you're doing well." I didn't reply. By Thursday night, I was ready. I placed the envelope back on the table, centered it perfectly. 1 chair for her, 1 for me. I poured 2 glasses of water, nothing else. This was not going to be a social visit. Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock exactly, her car rolled up again. This time she was alone. She smiled when she came in, nervous, uncertain. "I told Stuart I'd handle this," she said softly. "He can be pushy." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit." She sat, spotted the envelope, and smiled. "Is that it? Did you make your decision?" "Yes," I said. "I did." She leaned forward, expectant. "So?" I slid the envelope toward her. "I'm not giving you $100,000, but I am giving you something." She frowned slightly, curiosity overriding caution. She opened the envelope, pulled out the documents, and began to read. The color drained from her face as her eyes scanned the pages. This says, you transferred everything to a veterans charity. Correct. The house? The savings? All of it. When? April 25th. 5 days before you came to me about the investment. She stared at the date, confusion turning to disbelief. You gave it all away? You didn't even tell me? I didn't know you that. Her voice cracked. Dad, why would you do this? To make sure what I built goes somewhere honest. She stood up suddenly, the papers trembling in her hands. You can't mean this. You can't just... I can, I said, calm as stone. That's what irrevocable means. She looked like the air had left her body. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Then, quietly, she whispered, what about me? I met her eyes. You lied to me, Celeste. You excluded me. You used me. What about you? Her hand shook. The document slipped and scattered across the floor like dry leaves. She whispered, you're punishing me. No, I said. I'm teaching you what it feels like when actions have weight. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she staggered back, sat down heavily, her eyes unfocused. You can't undo this? No, I said again. It's done. The house fell silent except for the faint buzz of the ceiling fan. Outside, a sprinkler clicked on, life continuing as if nothing had changed. When she finally stood, her voice was thin. Stuart's not going to understand. His parents, that's between you and them, I said. She walked to the door without looking back. Before she left, I said quietly, there's a conditional clause. $50,000 after my death, if you accept the trust, as written, and never challenge it. She stopped. Didn't turn. Read the last page, I said. She left without a word, her car engine fading down the street. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by silence and scattered paper. Then I picked up each document, stacked them neatly, and placed them back in the envelope. It was not revenge. It was order. After years of giving without thought, I had finally learned to keep something for myself, peace. But I knew this wasn't the end. When people lose money, they get angry. When they lose control, they get dangerous. And my daughter? She was married to both. The first call came the next morning. I ignored it. By noon there were 3 missed calls, all from Celeste. Then a 4th, from an unknown number. I let it ring. Silence followed, then a vibration voicemail. I pressed play. Her voice was frantic, half breath, half blame. Dad, how could you do this? You can't just give everything away. This isn't you. Please call me back. A pause. Then quieter. Please. That night, another message. Stuart's voice this time steady, careful. Gus, we need to talk this through like adults. There are legal implications you might not understand. That phrase legal implications landed like a dart. Not concern. Threat. By Sunday afternoon, a third voice joined the chorus. Gus, this is Glenn Morrison, said the deep, self-assured tone of Stuart's father. We need to discuss your recent decisions. Celeste is devastated. There are serious legal concerns about your capacity when these documents were executed. Call me immediately. Capacity. They were going to claim I was mentally unfit. I sat at my desk, notebook open, pen in hand. The old real estate habit kicked in. Document everything. I wrote the time of each call, who said what, exact words. Then I wrote the question that mattered most. What's their play? By Tuesday, the answer arrived in a FedEx envelope, thick and heavy with legal weight. From Morrison and Associates. Subject: Demand for rescission of irrevocable trust. The letter was 8 pages of legal theater. It claimed concerns regarding diminished capacity and possible undue influence at the time of execution. It demanded access to my medical records. 10 days to comply. Failure to respond would result in litigation. I didn't panic. I called Richard Chen. His voice was calm. Standard intimidation tactic. They're bluffing, but we'll treat it seriously. Can they challenge my competency? They can try. Even a baseless claim has to be defended. But they have no evidence. Then let's make sure they never get any. We scheduled an appointment. 2 hours later, I was sitting in his office, watching him read through the letter, pen tapping against the desk. They're betting you'll back down, he said finally. But this isn't a fight they can win. The trust predates their money request by 5 days. That shows clear, rational intent. You had counsel me and everything was notarized. Still, we'll get ahead of it. How? I asked. Medical documentation, Chin replied. Full physical and psychological evaluation. We'll timestamp your clarity. If they want to question your capacity, they'll have to do it against medical evidence. He opened his laptop. I'll respond formally. You're competent, the trust is valid, and any litigation will be met with a counterclaim for attorney's fees under Arizona law. They'll think twice. I nodded. Schedule the evaluations. 2 days later, I was sitting under fluorescent lights at my primary doctor's office, answering a checklist that felt almost insulting. Any memory loss? No. Confusion or disorientation? Only when I'm talking to my daughter. The nurse smiled awkwardly. They ran the tests: physical, neurological, psychological. Each examiner asked the same question in a different tone. Why are you here? My answer never changed. Because my family says I've lost my mind. I'm here to prove I haven't. By the end of the week, I had 3 reports in hand. My physician: excellent health for a 63-year-old male. No signs of cognitive decline. Neurologist: mini. Mental state examination score 29 out of 30. Normal function. Psychologist: demonstrates clear logical reasoning, appropriate emotional control, and consistent judgment. I scanned the documents, emailed copies to Chen. His reply came 10 minutes later. Perfect. But the Morrisons didn't quit. They changed tactics. That weekend, my former colleague Tom Bradley called me. Gus, you need to see this. He sent a screenshot. Celeste's Facebook page again. A post, 2 days old. Sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is watching them decline and refusing to accept help. Please be kind to those caring for aging parents. Hundreds of sympathetic comments. So sorry you're going through this. Praying for strength. Stay strong, Celeste. She hadn't said my name. She didn't need to. Everyone knew. Tom's voice was tight with anger. Glenn's been telling people at the country club that you're losing it. Says you gave away your house to strangers. People believe it. I thanked him, hung up, and sat staring at the screenshot. There it was, the next phase. Public narrative. Destroy the father's credibility so the daughter looks like the victim. I didn't post. I didn't defend myself online. That's not how truth works. You don't argue with lies, you outlast them. The following Monday, I walked into Chin's office again. They've gone public, I said. He looked up from his laptop. Good. That's defamation territory. If they cross the line, we'll respond legally. For now, stay calm, stay quiet, keep records. I've done that my whole life, I said. I'm a man of records. As I drove home, the Arizona sky was burning orange. The Superstition Mountains were nothing but silhouettes. My phone buzzed. Celeste. I answered this time. Dad, she said sharply. You need to stop this. Stop what? This madness. Glenn says you're making it worse. We're going to prove in court that you weren't thinking clearly when you signed those papers. You're going to claim your own father is incompetent? She hesitated. You left me no choice. I smiled to myself, voice steady. I've never been more rational in my life. And you'll learn that in court, if you try. Then I hung up. The line went silent. But the fight had just started. That night, I poured myself a glass of water, not whiskey. I opened my notebook to a clean page. At the top, I wrote, Defense Strategy June. And under it, 1. Collect medical evidence. 2. Maintain written records. 3. Identify motive. 4. Expose the truth about the investment. That last line I underlined twice. Because deep down, I already suspected the truth. There was never a coffee franchise. There was only greed and a story that was about to collapse. By early June, my defense was airtight. But I was still missing one thing: proof of motive. Why risk everything for $100,000? What was the real plan? That answer came from an unexpected place. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. Tom Bradley again. Gus, I think I just solved your puzzle, he said. He'd been at the country club the night before, the same one where Glenn Morrison liked to hold court. Tom had overheard him talking about a new house renovation, custom marble, upgraded pool, even a boat purchase, once everything clears. Tom paused. This was right after he told someone your daughter was taking care of you financially. He said you'd finally come around and were investing in something big with them. That was it. The coffee franchise was a cover, not an investment, but a transfer. They were counting on my guilt to fund their luxury. I asked Tom if he'd be willing to put that conversation in writing. There was silence for a moment. Then he said, "If they're lying about you." "Yeah, I'll do it." 2 days later, I received his signed statement. Dated, typed, witnessed. It described Glenn's comments, the renovation, the planned boat, and his false claims about my supposed decline. I forwarded it to Richard Chin. His reply came within minutes. "That's the nail in their coffin." While Chin compiled the defense package medical records, timeline, witness statement, the Morrisons doubled down on public pressure. Celeste posted another carefully crafted message. "Sometimes the people we love most make choices we can't understand. All we can do is pray." Dozens of comments flooded in. "Stay strong, sweetie. You're doing the right thing." It was the kind of post that sounds saintly while quietly destroying someone's reputation. I saved screenshots of everyone. Evidence for what Chin called character strategy. A week later, Chin called. "Everything's ready," he said. "Medical clearance, psychological assessment, your original timeline." Tom Bradley's statement. "We've built a wall they can't climb." "So what happens now?" I asked. "We wait. They'll either file the lawsuit or back down. Either way, we'll respond decisively." The waiting lasted exactly 10 days. Then an email arrived from Chin with a single line. They folded. Attached was a scanned letter on Morrison and Associates letterhead. It was short, formal, and final. "Upon further review of evidence, our clients withdraw all claims and allegations regarding Mr. Griffin's competency. No further action will be pursued." I read it twice. After months of manipulation and lies, the silence of surrender felt louder than any victory speech. Chin smiled when I called. They saw the reports, the signed statement, the timeline. It wasn't worth the risk of sanctions for a frivolous suit. "You've won." But I knew better than to celebrate. Legal battles end on paper. Family ones don't. When someone's been exposed, they don't apologize. They look for a new angle. Sure enough, 3 days later, my phone buzzed again. "Celeste." The text read, "Can we talk? Just you and me. No lawyers. Please." I stared at it for a full minute. Chin had warned me, if she reaches out now, she's not seeking reconciliation. She's negotiating. Still, I said yes. Sometimes you need to hear what desperation sounds like up close. We met that Friday, same house, same room. She arrived alone this time, looking smaller somehow. No makeup, no jewelry, no performance. Just jeans and a plain shirt. She hugged me lightly, like she was testing whether she was still allowed to. "Dad, I've had weeks to think," she began, voice trembling in that way that could either mean guilt or rehearsal. "I was wrong. About everything. I let Stuart's parents influence me. I hurt you. I'm sorry." She wiped her eyes, though I didn't see tears. "You're still my father. That has to mean something." I let her speak. Then, softly, she shifted tone. "I'm not asking for money. I know the trust is in place. I just wonder if there's a way we could revisit it. Maybe add me as co-beneficiary with the charity? You'd still help veterans, but also your family." I reached for a folder on the table and slid a document across. Tom Bradley's signed statement. "Before we discuss trusts, let's discuss truth," I said. She frowned, started reading. Her eyes darted faster as the meaning sank in Glenn's bragging, the house renovation, the boat, the proof that their investment was never real. "This is a lie," she whispered. Tom misunderstood. "Tom has nothing to gain by lying," I said. "He put his name on it. The evidence is clear." Her shoulders slumped. Glenn pushed the idea. "When I found out what he wanted the money for, it was too late. You don't understand what it's like being married into that family. The pressure. You had choices," I said evenly. "You chose to lie about Hawaii. You chose to build a fake investment pitch. You chose them over me. Own your choices." Her eyes filled again. This time, real tears. "Please, Dad. Give me one more chance. I'll fix this. Just don't cut me out completely. There's a conditional clause in the trust," I said. $50,000 for you after my death, if you accept it without challenge." She stared at me. "What's the condition?" "You'll come here with Stuart, Glenn, and Nora. You'll confess out loud that Hawaii was planned without me and that the investment was fake. You'll tell the truth in front of everyone with my attorney as witness." Her face went pale. "That's humiliation. You're asking me to destroy my marriage." "I'm asking you to rebuild your integrity," I said. "The choice is yours. Truth and 50,000, or lies and nothing." She stood, shaking. "You're cruel." she said. You've become cold. And you've become someone I don't recognize. I replied. But here we are. She left, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame. I didn't move. I sat there in the silence, the echo fading, the smell of her perfume still hanging in the air. I wasn't angry. I was tired. I had given her a way back and she had called it punishment. Maybe she was right. Or maybe it was just the price of truth in a family built on lies. 4 weeks of silence followed. No calls, no texts, no Facebook posts. For the first time in months, the quiet didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Then, on a Sunday night at 11, my phone lit up. A single message from Celeste. I'm ready to accept your conditions. I'll do it. Just tell me when. I read it 3 times. I hadn't believed she'd ever agree. Pride had always been her armor. But maybe the threat of total exclusion had finally broken through the surface. I forwarded the message to Richard Chen. He replied within the hour. I'll prepare the documents. When? I answered. This Saturday. 2 o'clock. My house. The week leading up to it was strange. Quiet. Deliberate. I mowed the lawn, polished the dining table, filed every paper in order. Not because I wanted the house to look good, because I wanted the moment to be clean, documented, final. When Saturday arrived, I woke early, put on a pressed shirt, and made black coffee the way I always had. The Arizona sun was already cutting through the blinds when Richard Chen pulled up in front of the house. He stepped inside, calm as ever, carrying a leather portfolio. You sure you want to do this at home? He asked. Yes, I said. This is where the lie started. This is where it ends. At 2 o'clock sharp, Celeste and Stuart arrived. She looked pale, composed, rehearsed. He looked confused, still half in the dark about why they were there. A few minutes later, Glenn and Nora Morrison appeared. Glenn came in talking, just as I expected. Gus, glad you've reconsidered. We can all be reasonable about this. His tone was polished arrogance, the sound of a man used to getting his way. I didn't offer him a seat. We're not here to discuss the trust, I said. We're here because Celeste has something to say. The room went still. Stuart turned to her. What's going on? Nora frowned. Celeste? Celeste's hands were trembling slightly. She took a deep breath, eyes flicking toward me, then down at the papers on the table. There are things I need to admit, she began. Her voice was soft, uneven. Things I lied about. Glenn started to speak, but I raised a hand. Let her talk. Celeste swallowed hard. Last March, I invited Dad to Hawaii for his birthday. Then I canceled, saying Stuart's job was in trouble and we couldn't afford it. That was a lie. We went to Hawaii those same dates with you too. She looked at Glenn and Nora. And it was planned that way from the start. Dad was never supposed to be included. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the air conditioner seemed to stop. Glenn's face hardened. But before he could interrupt, Celeste continued, her voice breaking slightly. And the coffee franchise wasn't real. There was no franchise, no investors. Glenn wanted money for the house renovation and a boat. He told us to ask Dad for it. We lied about it being a business deal. Nora gasped, turning toward her husband. Is this true? Glenn's jaw tightened. That's ridiculous, he said. That investment was completely legitimate. I reached for a folder on the side table and laid a document in front of him. Tom Bradley's signed statement, I said. He overheard you bragging about the renovation and the boat. He also confirmed your supposed co-investors never existed. Glenn's voice rose. You're twisting everything. He looked at Celeste. How could you say this? Celeste was crying now, quiet, ashamed. Stuart sat frozen beside her, realization spreading slowly across his face. You told me your dad pulled out last minute, he said softly. You said he was unpredictable. She looked at him, desperate. I was trying to keep everyone calm. I thought I could make it work. Nora stood, eyes wet with anger. After everything we did for you, Celeste, we treated you like our own daughter and this is how you repay us? Glenn was pacing now, red-faced. This was all you're doing, Gus. You've turned her against us. I stayed seated, calm. No, Glenn. I gave her a choice, truth for $50,000 or lies for nothing. She chose truth. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Stuart stood, his expression heavy, resigned. We're leaving, he said quietly. Celeste, we'll talk later. He looked at me once, not with anger, but something closer to respect. Glenn and Nora stormed out behind him, muttering threats and accusations. Celeste stayed seated, hands covering her face. Richard Chin broke the silence first. He opened his portfolio, pulled out 2 documents, and placed them on the table. "This establishes a $50,000 trust in your name," he said to Celeste. "Accessible only after your father's passing, under the condition that you make no further financial requests or legal challenges. You also acknowledge the confession you just made, witnessed here today." She nodded weakly, eyes red. "I understand." She signed. Chin notarized it. The sound of his stamp echoed like a gavel. When they were gone, the house fell quiet again. The same room where she'd once lied now held the truth, and it was almost too heavy to bear. Chin packed up his documents and said, "That was uglier than expected." "It needed to be ugly," I said. "Pretty lies got us here. Ugly truth gets us out." After he left, I sat alone in the stillness. On the desk was a letter from the Arizona Veterans Alliance. A thank you note for the quarterly distribution that had helped 3 homeless veterans find housing. Real people. Real help. I picked it up and read it again, slowly. That letter was worth more than any apology I would ever get. I walked to my office, opened my laptop, and clicked the bookmarked page the Maui resort I had once planned to visit with my daughter. The images of blue water and coral reefs filled the screen. For the first time, they didn't hurt to look at. I booked the trip. 1 ticket, 1 room, 1 name. Gus Griffin. When the confirmation email arrived, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace without conditions. The day after the confession, the house felt different. Not empty, balanced. The kind of silence that isn't loneliness, but closure. For months, I'd lived inside noise calls, threats, guilt, and manipulation. Now it was just me, my coffee, and a letter from the Arizona Veterans Alliance pinned neatly to the fridge. Their last note had thanked me for the funds that provided housing for 3 homeless veterans in Phoenix. 3 people with nowhere to go, now sleeping under roofs that I helped secure. My daughter called it cruelty. They called it hope. I spent that Monday cleaning out old drawers. Bank statements, expired insurance cards, birthday cards Celeste had sent years ago when we still spoke honestly. I didn't cry. Nostalgia is a luxury you lose once you've measured how much trust costs in real dollars. I stacked everything into boxes, labeled them for storage, and realized how much lighter life becomes when you stop confusing forgiveness with weakness. By noon, Richard Chin called. "The Veterans Charity received their transfer," he said. "They sent another thank you letter. You've made a real impact." "I read it," I replied. "Feels better than any investment ever did." He chuckled softly. "You're one of the few clients who actually sound happier after giving everything away." "I didn't give it away," I said. "I gave it purpose." After we hung up, I sat at my desk and opened the folder labeled Future Plans. Inside was the Maui itinerary I had once made, the one Celeste had erased with her lie. Snorkeling at Molokini Crater, dinner at the Cliffside Restaurant, a sunrise tour at Haleakala. I looked at those pages and realized that I didn't need her there for it to matter. The trip wasn't about her anymore. It was about taking back the moments I had let guilt steal. That evening, I finished my reservation. Departure, mid-September. Hotel, ocean, view room. Activities, snorkeling, dinner, sunrise hike. Under number of guests, I typed 1. When I hit confirm, I exhaled. It wasn't revenge, it was release. The next morning, I opened the blinds and watched the desert sky turn from gold to blue. Arizona heat was rising already, shimmering above the driveway. My phone sat face down on the counter. For once, I didn't dread what it might show. No voicemails from lawyers. No half apologies. Just silence. The kind that sounds like peace when you've earned it. A few days later, I received another envelope, this one from Chin's office. Inside were updated copies of the trust papers and a short letter. All filings complete. Distribution schedule locked. Your assets are now protected under Arizona law. Congratulations, Mr. Griffin, you did everything right. I placed it in the drawer beside my passport, a symbol that this chapter was sealed. Later that week, I took a walk around the neighborhood. The same one where, months ago, I'd sat in my kitchen wondering how my daughter could lie so easily. The same sidewalks that had once felt too quiet now just felt peaceful. I passed the Petersons watering their yard, the Connollys walking their dog. They waved. I waved back. No one asked questions, and I didn't offer answers. The details didn't matter anymore. That night, I poured a single glass of scotch, not to drown anything, but to mark the end. Outside, the Arizona sunset stretched wide, painting the sky in red and amber. I thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the confrontation, the legal war, the confession. For months I had been surrounded by people obsessed with controlling the narrative. Now I finally understood something simple. The truth doesn't need defending. It only needs surviving. A few days before the trip, I received one last text. It was from Celeste. "Dad, I hope you're doing okay. I know I can't undo what I did. Just, thank you for giving me the chance to tell the truth. I'm trying to rebuild things, even if it's without you." I read it once. Didn't reply. Sometimes silence is the only honest answer left. When September came, I packed light. One small suitcase. Passport. The printed Maui itinerary. Before I left, I stood in the doorway of my home one last time, breathing in the still air. Every corner of that house had witnessed some form of betrayal, and now, recovery. I locked the door, slipped the key in my pocket, and felt, for the first time in years, completely free. On the flight to Hawaii, I watched the ocean widen beneath the clouds. The seat beside me was empty, but I didn't feel alone. Somewhere below, the Veterans Charity was helping another person move off the streets. Somewhere above, the sun was setting exactly as it had in that Facebook photo, except this time, it was mine. When I landed in Maui, the air was soft, salt-heavy, alive. I checked into the same resort Celeste had visited. The same palm-lined pool, the same sound of waves breaking on black rock. But this time there were no photos, no captions, no audience. Just one man finally living the trip that truth had postponed. That night, I stood on the balcony watching the horizon fade into darkness. A warm breeze brushed past, and for a long time, I didn't move. In that moment, I wasn't a father betrayed or a victim of deceit. I was just a man who'd learned that freedom doesn't come from what you keep, it comes from what you stop allowing to own you. When I turned back inside, the confirmation email from Hawaiian Airlines glowed faintly on my phone screen. One passenger, Gus Griffin. Return flight. Open. I smiled. Maybe I wouldn't come back so soon. Maybe I'd stay until the silence felt permanent. Maybe I already had. Outside, the night surf whispered against the rocks, endless and calm. For the first time in a long time, I didn't need anything else. I'd won not by destroying them, but by refusing to let them destroy me. Not by taking revenge, but by reclaiming peace. They could keep their anger and their shame. I would keep my integrity, my quiet, and my ticket to tomorrow. A fair trade, I thought. And with that, I closed the balcony door, turned off the light, and let the ocean carry the rest of the story.